Finally, the international break is at an end, and I'm delighted to be joined, as ever, by Mr. Adrian Clarke and Mark O'Hare to preview the best of the weekend Premier League action. No more international football for quite some time, until 2021. Mark O'Hare, but you've always loved international football, right? But it's been great. The last couple of nights have been fantastic, haven't they?
Yeah, it has. I mean, it's probably started last Thursday with the Euro playoffs as well. It's huge jeopardy and so much at stake for those nations, which is probably the best thing about the Nations League, really, is it gives these smaller nations an opportunity to compete, but also to reach these major tournaments. We saw huge joy for Scotland, but look at Macedonia as well. I mean, they'd never, ever have an opportunity to qualify for a major tournament. So, yeah, I've actually quite enjoyed it. Nations League, towards the top end, not really, because they are more sort of glorified friendlies. Those teams always qualify for major tournaments. But below the belt, certainly there's quite a lot at stake, and I've quite enjoyed it this week.
Before we get into this weekend's action, you actually said just pre-recording that you might have a bit of a kind of a back-to-lay option for the Euros. Explain all.
Yeah, I mean, the caveat is we can spend hours and hours and hours, and I certainly do, looking at the group draws, trying to plot who qualifies and who plays where, etc., and so on. But there is one team, one group actually, which stands out to me, and that's Group B. Because the group winner of Group B plays a third place team, and the runner-up also plays a runner-up. So effectively, if you finish in the top two, you're not playing against a group winner in the last 16. So Belgium are fair favourites to win that group, but they have to play Russia in St. Petersburg and Denmark in Copenhagen, and then they're back to St. Petersburg to play Finland. So they're fair favourites, but at 1.5, I'm not sure I'd be too keen on getting involved in them. It's a bit of a nuisance schedule. So you look outside that, it's probably a 4-hour direct flight as well between Copenhagen and St. Petersburg. So yeah, it's a bit of a nuisance for Belgium. So I looked at Denmark. They're 80 on the exchange at the moment as a back-to-trade option. For me, they're coming up against Belgium, Finland and Russia. Bar Belgium, they're not going to be outsiders. They're playing all games in Copenhagen as well, which is a massive, massive boost for them. Defensively, they're really well organised and structured. They might lack a bit of adventure in the final third, but Christian Eriksen and co, they've got enough there to edge tight games, a base and an organisation, which is always key in major tournaments. And also, if you look through where they might finish, if they win the group or finish runners-up in the group, actually, if you plot their sort of rides towards the quarterfinals, it's not actually that bad. If they do finish as runners-up, they'll be playing a team in the group of Italy, Wales, Turkey, or Switzerland. You'd expect Italy to win that group. They're playing in Rome in their group games. So then Wales, Turkey, and Switzerland, well, they've actually will have to have travelled between Baku and Rome in the group stage as well. And this game would take place in Amsterdam. So effectively, you're looking at Denmark playing 3 Copenhagen games and then going to Amsterdam. I know those matches, they'd probably be favourites to win those. So, and then you're into the quarterfinals, and suddenly that 80 is probably half the price, and you've got an option to trade out. And the other route, I think, if they do get to the quarterfinals, the biggest seed they'll play would be the Group C winners, which at the moment looks like Holland, which are no great shakes right now either. So, yeah, I think kind of plotting things through this week, I thought Denmark had the best draw, the best rest periods, and also probably the best locations for matches.
Mark, ever thought of a second career in being a detective? I mean, that is some forensic detail you got into. I love it. Great stuff.
You know this dynamic of the travel for the Euros next summer is going to be fascinating. I know a lot of people at the start when we looked at it saying, "Oh well, nobody wants to host this tournament," but I think it's going to lead to a whole new dynamic. And I know, like Mark, I was probably a bit disparaging there with my intro, but that's more based around the Nations League stuff. Obviously, you know, when you get to a European Championship, it's a whole different ball game. It's terrific entertainment. But yeah, and qualifiers obviously they matter, but just some of the UEFA Nations League is just a bit like you said, just glorified friendlies. You know,
it is at the top end for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think even if you look at last night, Wednesday's action, you and I, Sully, will both be cheering on Ireland, but it's been a difficult ride recently. But even that game against Bulgaria had huge repercussions, and most people outside of Ireland and Bulgaria probably wouldn't have realised that. But there is quite a lot at stake financially. There's a huge amount at stake too for the federations too. But yeah, I mean, I can understand why people switch off if you're following England or Belgium or Italy or Spain, etc. But go down to tier 2, 3, and 4, and there's a lot to play for.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Absolutely. Let's move on to Premier League. It is back. It returns. Probably one of the most open Premier League seasons in some time. Today's show, we're going to cover Liverpool versus Leicester to lead off, Leeds against Arsenal, Tottenham versus Man City, Wolves against Southampton, Monday Night Football at Molineux. We're going to also go around Europe, and Adrian, as ever, has some selections in the EFL, and we're obviously going to do weekend best bets thereafter. Right, let's start with first plays third in the Premier League season. This is going to be weird. And we would have presumed, obviously, Liverpool would have been first. There's obviously a hell of a long way to go. Marco, here, I'll start with you first, but let's have a look at the betting to kick off things. Liverpool at 1.99, Leicester City at 3.82. The draw is available there at 3.94. Leicester City getting a half a goal start on the Asian handicap at just under 1.95, and the total is 3, which I think is probably a fair enough one, Marco, here. Liverpool, first of all, a hell of a lot of injuries coming into this one. Even after the midweek international, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Jordan Henderson now is a bit of a doubt. He should be okay. Andrew Robertson, there's a few doubts there as well. But Leicester City, guys, we haven't got them right at all this season. So I think whatever we're going to back in this game, you probably want to do the opposite. But Mark, we've obviously underestimated Leicester. And the one time that we were with them, they didn't oblige us. So are we going to get it with them this weekend?
No. Okay. All right, I'm sounding really stubborn, aren't I? I want to talk about Liverpool first, though, because that price for me is what's been most fascinating, actually, in the past 2 weeks, watching that price. They opened around 1.55. They're now even money. That's a significant move. And, I looked at this because I was fascinated by it. Take Man City out of the equation and look at Liverpool's home Premier League games. 46 games since they were evens or bigger at home in the Premier League. That was way back in February 2018. They've only dropped 3 points. They've only dropped points in 3 of those 46 games. If you exclude Man City from the equation as well, and it's almost 3 years since they've been evens or bigger against any Premier League team at Anfield. We obviously know the reasons for that. Van Dijk's out, Salah's out, Gomez is out, Alexander-Arnold's out. There's doubts over others as well. Those 4, absolutely, they're hugely influential players in both boxes. I get that. But I tried to plot Liverpool's 11 for this game. And you sort of hinted about Henderson and Robertson. I expect them to play. So I expect Liverpool's 11 to be something along the lines of Alisson in goal, Nico Williams or Milner at right back, possibly Milner, Matip, Nat Phillips, who was great against West Ham, and Robertson. A midfield 3 of Henderson. Thiago should be back in the frame as well. Wijnaldum, you got Naby Keita there as well. And then Firmino, Mane and Jota up front with Shaqiri as an option. That's not a bad team at all, is it? No. Considering the amount of players that they're missing. Fabinho is also potentially in contention as well.
He's going to be back, yeah.
So suddenly that team doesn't start to look quite as bad. There's still huge threats going forward. I appreciate the defence is quite short, but do Liverpool deserve to have moved from 1.55 to evens? I'm not sure. I think probably 1.8, 1.75 would probably be where I would have had them. You look at the defence going into the Man City game. Gomez and Matip partnered each other for the first time in Premier League history, and they only conceded 2 shots on target. They were great for the first half hour, lost their way a bit after, but Clarke did try to do something a little bit different. He might try and do something different here. We don't know. But I think right now I'm willing to take the gamble on Liverpool fielding a strength of a team close to that 11, which I sort of read out at even money, because I think they're good enough. And I also want to go back on Leicester. The same points I've sort of lost a lot of money on sort of opposing them. But it's 8 penalties they've won now. 44% of their XG total has been penalties. The next best in the league is Sheffield United, with 28% of their XG total coming from penalties. So a massive difference there. Take out penalties, they're averaging 1.01 non-penalty XG, which isn't great at all. I don't want to be too harsh because they've probably lost basically their first choice back 4, back 5 from last season, if you include Ndidi as well. So credit to them. They're playing in a style which is working. I can see them causing problems for Liverpool, absolutely, in transition, balls over the top, Vardy, etc. The switch to the back 5 has certainly helped them as well. There's doubts over Fofana though as well, which needs to be said.
Yes.
And get this as well, in the era of the Big Six, basically since since Leicester won the Premier League, they've only been shorter away from home against a Big Six team once over the last 4 years than they are this weekend against Liverpool. That's not right for me. They're not that good. They are good. They're a good team, but they're not that good. And I think Leicester were a bigger price way at Arsenal than they are to win at Anfield this weekend, and that's just not right for me. So I'm willing to take the gamble on the team news and take Liverpool to win at evens.
And why not? We've backed against them so often, and we're going against them with a team that
I'm going to die on this hill.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? You might as well die with a team that hasn't lost a home game in 63 games in Liverpool. Adrian Clarke, what do you think about this one? Like Mark said, it is a massive move for a team that perennially do win at home.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I echo all of Mark's thoughts there. The price is not right. The price is not right. I mean, Liverpool at home with Salah's missing. That's a blow, but the form that Jota's in, that will compensate. Midfield's not an issue. I think Leicester's rearguard have coped admirably with the injury list, but they haven't come up against a team as good as Liverpool yet, and they haven't come up against a Mane and a Firmino and a Jota. So I think that will. Yeah, I can see them conceding here. I'm glad that Mark picked Nat Phillips as the centre half to play alongside Matip. That's what I would do if I was Liverpool, because he's quick. Well, obviously we saw him against West Ham and he had an excellent game. But I looked into it. I did a piece on Liverpool this week and the option of him or Fabinho, and Phillips is the third quickest player at the club based on top speeds this season. He's actually their quickest defender based on top speeds only. So I think that he is the right guy to slot in there to handle the pace of Vardy. Even though the penalties are a huge issue, Vardy has been electric. There's no denying it. And Harvey Barnes as well down that left-hand side. So they will cause a threat in this game. No question. Yeah. And I like both teams to score. I know that's very, very short. It's probably not worth backing, but I can see both teams scoring. But yeah, Leicester's depleted rear guard. I don't fancy them to hold Liverpool at bay here. I don't think it'll be a thrashing, but at the price, I'm very, very tempted to take Liverpool here. The home record is just immense, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. You could look for the bigger price. I know it's about 1.6 as both teams to score, so you could possibly do, if you fancy Liverpool, to do Liverpool and both teams to score, and that would bump up your price. But yeah, look, it's hard to get away from it, and yeah, I mean, look, you guys made the case that there are going to be a few absentees, but this is Liverpool. They have a bit of depth now. They've been building around this for the last 2 or 3 years, and let's just do it again, guys. Let's just keep going, like Mark said. If we're going to die on this hill, we might as well die backing, the Premier League champions. And
I just think, Sully, the league table lies massively at this stage of the season as well, and Leicester are probably a top 6 team. We can accept that. But they've not really had a really strong test. Even the Man City game, 3 penalties in that game absolutely bumped the score up. In the first half, they were blown away for half an hour. That Liverpool team, the only issue really is the defence. And, Klopp might go back to old school and just try and outscore the opposition, which they're very well.
And it's worth noting that the games that they perform well in at Arsenal and Leeds, the away, notable away wins for Rodgers against Arteta and Bielsa. They rode their luck big time in those games. There's one goal that was wrongly chalked off against them. Arsenal missed an absolute sitter. Bamford missed a sitter, and Leeds were pummeling them.
The opening goal as well against Leeds, which was a slip in defence, etc., allows them Leicester in to score, and that changes the complexion hugely if you're playing Leeds.
Yeah. And also, I'd like to point out there, when are we going to get probably shades of odds against on Liverpool at home for the rest of the season? I don't know. There are too many games. You might not. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, even Manchester United are going in there, they're going to be probably 1.8, 1.75 or whatnot. And even Manchester City in their current form. I don't know. It's one of those things. All right, let's move on, guys. I like it. We're going against Leicester again. And you know what? Like Mark said, we're going to just die on this hill, and we're going to be happy to do so, yeah. And it's going to be sweet vindication on Sunday night, Mark. It's a late game on Sunday. It's going to be sweet vindication for us. All right, we could talk about that game a bit more, but let's move on to an earlier game on Sunday. Leeds United at home to Arsenal. Adrian, I'll start with you here first, but let's take a look at the betting. First of all, Leeds at 3.3, Arsenal at 2.24, the draw available at 3.82. Leeds getting a quarter of a goal start on the Asian handicap at odds against 2.01, and the total is 2.75. And I hesitate there for a second, Adrian, because this game kind of strikes me as one that there could potentially be goals. But what are you thinking with this one?
Yeah, that's my instant thought. I mean, you just have to look at Leeds home games. Leeds games are averaging almost 4 a game. I think 3.88.
Yeah.
So they're involved in some thrillers. Many of those have been on home turf. Both teams to have a 62% record in over 2.5 goals in their games as well, which explains why that line is there, I guess. So yeah, overs is definitely of interest, mainly because of Leeds defending. That no one's conceded more than Leeds. Obviously, they've let in 4 in each of their last 2. I really don't like the centre backs. I really don't like them in the way that Bielsa plays. I think that this is something he needs to look at in January. Robin Koch has been awful, really. Struijk has not convinced me. Cooper's had his injury issues. They've obviously lost Calvin Phillips as the shield, even though Shackleton's a decent enough stand-in. I think they're really vulnerable. They will come at anybody and they'll cause Arsenal problems. They'll create bundles of chances probably in this game, but surely Arsenal on the counter-attack. And let's be honest, Arsenal are at their best on the counter. Surely Aubameyang, this is a game tailor-made for him to regain form, in my opinion. I think that if he makes those runs, if he starts down the middle, which I know that a lot of Arsenal fans are like this about, come on, Mikel, do the right thing. Even if he doesn't, sliding in from the left to make those runs inside of Robin Koch, I think he can have a field day. I really do believe that, especially as well with Aidan. He's a very attack-minded right back. I like Luke Ayling. I think he's a really good player, but there are holes down that side. So yeah, I'm sort of flagging up Aubameyang to regain form. Arsenal were poor, obviously. Well, worse than poor really against Aston Villa. It was an absolutely shocking performance, and I think that they will have learned from it. I think Arteta will have gone away and hopefully just had a slight tactical rethink, because it didn't click in that game at all. And going forward, Arsenal haven't posed enough danger. The plus for them here is that Leeds will always give you chances, and maybe this is the kind of game that Arsenal have been waiting for to kickstart. On Leeds, by the way, the stats are frightening going forward. I did a piece on them this week as well on Bamford, and Bamford is up there with Salah and Kane in terms of efforts on goal. He's right in amongst the elite marksmen in terms of getting on the end of chances. And Liverpool are the only team that have had more shots, unblocked shots, than Leeds this season. So basically, they've had the second most amount of shots, Leeds. So they will cause anyone problems, but at the back, they're borderline hopeless at times. So yeah, overs and Arsenal, I think.
Okay, so Patrick Bamford is now being talked about with Mo Salah and Harry Kane. The new normal, Adrian. I love it. Yeah, statistically. Mark O'Hare, what's the way in for this one? Like I said, I kind of looked at that goal and I thought it'd actually be bigger than the Leicester and Liverpool game. But look, what do I know? What do you think of this one?
Yeah, I mean, Adrian's kind of taken a bit of wind out of my sails, really, because whilst I agree with almost a lot of what he says, I've always taken the opposite approach, really, which is quite concerning. I can certainly see the argument for taking the other side of the coin, but I kind of looked at this and thought, you look at Leeds' game against Palace, for example. Bielsa admitted they weren't good enough, but I think it was always also widely, talked about that the scoreline was very harsh on Leeds. They only faced 10 shots in the game. VAR went against them as well. And yeah, we know Leeds want the ball. We know Leeds want to attack. We know they've probably been a bit too adventurous, but we also know that they've also been their own downfall, really, with too many sort of elementary errors as well. So I think that's kind of part and parcel of a newly promoted club at times, but they've had a really tough schedule. Leicester, Liverpool, Wolves, City, even Villa so far. So I'm not writing them off yet. I still think they're well capable of being at least mid-table. I did think they were slightly overpriced for this game, but I'm not really keen on getting involved in that because, as Adrian said, Arsenal's issues really have come against low block defences. Look at the games against Leicester, Wolves, Palace, for example. They will relish playing on the counter-attack, but so yeah, from a tactical perspective, I think I'd rather leave it alone. Calvin Phillips should be back for Leeds, which does help them massively. But I just thought that goal line, it's changed a little bit since yesterday when I looked originally. It was set at 3, and I was keen to take the unders, knowing that 4 goals or more would lose my stake. Full. Yeah, I have to admit, really, that I haven't called Leeds games very well in terms of goals this season. But and also the underlying metrics certainly suggest that the games are full of goals and full of created opportunities at either end. But it's mainly based on Arsenal. I think their 3-0 defeat against Villa last time out is probably fresh in my memory still. They did have one of the best defences, or I think they did have the best defence in the Premier League going into that game, despite constant injury issues. I think they've had much more protection and foundation with their back three as well. But they just don't really do high-scoring games. I think only 6 of 28 Premier League games under Arteta have featured 4 or more goals. 13 of those produced 1 goal or no goals at all. They're only averaging 9 shots per game. Their XG output is okay, 1.1 per game, but it's nowhere near top 6 quality. Aubameyang didn't even get a shot against Villa. The issues are, I don't need to be the first one. Adrian's done it many times and talked about the issues that Aubameyang's had in getting into goal-scoring positions. And I just wonder whether Arteta is going to sort of move away from his philosophy to allow this game to really open up. If you're backing overs, I think you're kind of relying heavily on Bielsa and Leeds to do that. And yeah, it probably will come and land. I just thought when the goal line was set at 3, I'd happily take the under, knowing that 4 or more was the way I'd lose my stake, rather than potentially. But then I've kind of looked at it right now as we're talking, and you got over 2.5 at almost 1.73. So yeah, potentially I can see both angles. So I'm almost kind of backing away from this game now, having originally wanted the unders. But that's just how the market moves sometimes. 24 hours ago I had a bet. Now I probably don't have a bet.
That's okay. But and I don't want to do this, but I think like you made the point with over 2.5, and if we were to lock in a selection. I think it's 1.75 at the moment. Then that's
absolutely fine to me.
Yeah. Here, I agree with that one.
With small margins to me, small margins. Yesterday over 2.5 was trading around 1.69, 1.7. Not for me. Suddenly, so it moves a couple of points. It's of interest.
2020 is all about reacting and adapting, Mark. We're all about that here in the Matchbook Betting Podcast. So over 2.5, Adrian, you happy enough for that one, mate?
I'm happy enough for that. Yeah, I'm quite confident that will land. Yeah, so it's obviously a slightly skinnier price, but I'm confident. Look, this is the Premier League in 2020, 21. This is, nothing goes under 2.5, does it? Unless you're Burnley.
Exactly. Unless you're Burnley. Yeah, there's a few games. The odd occasion. All right, let's move on. Tottenham versus Man City is next on the agenda. Let's bring up the betting. Mark, I'll come to you for this one first, but let's have a look at the betting at Matchbook at the time of recording. Tottenham Hotspur 4.25 at home. Okay, so I've set my flag there in the sand pretty quickly about that, Mark, where I'm going. Manchester City at 1.84, the draw available at 4.15. Tottenham getting 3/4 of a goal start on the Asian handicap, half on 0.5 and half at 1.0, just under 1.87, and 3 is the total. And okay, Mark, look, Tottenham, and I know we don't want to get too much into the fact that they're second and Manchester City are 10th, obviously, albeit with a game in hand. But that's a hell of a price for a team that they look kind of hard enough to break down at the moment, albeit a couple of defensive frailties. But Jose has got them playing pretty well.
Yeah, he has. I think this is a key game for him and Spurs. It's the litmus test to see where they actually are. I don't think it's unfair to say they've had probably the softest schedule in the Premier League starting the season so far. This is their first big game. They are 1 point off the top, unbeaten in 7 since the opening day against Everton. Performances in Europe have also been reasonably good, bar the Antwerp match, where I think he made all 5 subs at half time or something similar to that anyway. Whereas City have had a tough schedule. They've already had to play Leicester, Wolves, Liverpool and Arsenal, so you can understand why they're stuck in mid-table. But I think this match is fascinating because if you remember last season, they played each other twice. Spurs took 4 points off City, scored 3 goals from a total of 5 shots and an XG of 1.41, which included a penalty. And City scored 2 goals from about 30-odd shots and a 6.5 XG output in the head-to-heads. Madness, really, and that's just not going to be repeated again. But the big question I have revolves around Mourinho and how he's going to approach this game. Traditionally, we know he likes to play a more pragmatic style against the big teams, contain and counter approach, if you like, safety first. And I wonder, because he has got the tools at his disposal now to play a bit more of a forward-thinking possession style. But I just think he might revert back to what he's good at, knowing the threats that they have on the counter, the way Son and Kane have played together. He's got pace at fullback as well. I think Matt Doherty is the only player missing for Spurs this weekend. You look at the players who missed out on the squad against West Brom, it was before the international break. 3 or 4 big name players not even in the squad. Bale's back to form and fitness as well, so he's got the tools at his disposal to put together a decent performance. I just think he might revert to type a little bit. Just because you look at how City have struggled to create a few chances this season compared to usual, and the games in which they have struggled, Leicester, West Ham and Arsenal, all of which had I guess you could call it a bit of a low block, almost asking City to break them down, and City have struggled with that. They had a bit more joy against Liverpool, but the game was a bit more to and fro. And then look at the players that City may or may not have available. I do expect Sterling to play. Aguero and Fernandinho probably not fit enough just yet. And City's record last year against the top 7, 5 defeats from 6, only scored 4 goals in those games, and their chance creation has dipped across the board, no matter what metric you're looking at: goals, shots, XG, etc. Whether they were normally sort of Premier League leaders in all those kind of metrics, they're far from it this year. So I know they've had issues with not having a forward to lead the line. Jesus is fit and available, but the positive for City really has been the growing partnership between Diaz and Laporte. Defensively, exclude penalties, and their defensive metrics have certainly improved. So I kind of started looking at the under 3 goals line, but you don't really want to do that in a game involving City too often. We did it against Liverpool, I think, and we were a little bit fortunate. I think you kind of alluded to it at the start there, Sully. Spurs are a big price in this game, and I fancy them to pick up at least a point. So rather than taking the plus 3/4 start, I just take the plus half a goal. Spurs not to lose, basically. It's odds against. I think that's fair enough at the moment. This is a big test for Tottenham.
Adrian, what do you think?
I do exactly the same. I've got exactly the same written down. Spurs plus 0.5, 2.1. I think it was coming in at. I think that's the best price.
Let's just have a quick look at that, Adrian, while we have it there. So it's actually up on screen there, 2.11 exactly. So you can see
that would be my pick. That would be my pick. I mean, Mark's right about the fixtures. They've been relatively kind. Although Southampton away is looking like an unbelievable result, isn't it? 5-2. Obviously, at Manchester United was just a freak game. But you can't deny that they've been seriously impressive going forward. I looked at big chances created, which I always think is an interesting one, because a chance created could just be a little layoff for a shot from 25 yards. That is that really telling you anything? Big chances created, they lead the way. They've had the most in the Premier League this season, with 21 across their games so far, which is very, very impressive from Tottenham. And City will no doubt come at them. And when they do, Kane dropping in the hole, and I thought his link play for England again in the 2 games was really sharp. He just looks like a player in complete control of his own game at the moment. And Son just making those runs, Bale as well from the other side potentially. I can see Spurs causing City real problems on the counter-attack in this game. It's a hard one to call, it really is. But I think at the price, even Spurs at 4.3, you'd be tempted, wouldn't you, to have a small wager on them there. Might be of interest to some, because City drew at Leeds, drew at West Ham, weren't overly impressive. How fit is Raheem Sterling at the moment? Is he going to feature? We're not quite sure. There's a lot of reason, I think, to suspect that this might be another so-so performance from Manchester City. I haven't seen enough from them to suggest this is going to be vintage City on the road, absolutely sweeping Spurs to one side. They're good enough. We know that, but what we've seen so far I couldn't back them to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it was just the price when I looked at it, and look, you're thinking about Manchester City. They're only averaging 1.46 goals through 10 games of the Premier League season, and you're like, I don't know. There's just a couple of doubts there. And,
the one caveat is that Spurs' home form has been slightly patchy, hasn't it, Mark? Obviously, they dropped points against West Ham and Newcastle, but they're very different type of games, aren't they?
Really won those games as well, shouldn't they?
Yeah, they're the ones where they're being asked to break down the low block. It's not going to be like that here.
All right, let's move on. Tottenham plus a half a goal at 2.11. Very happy with that. Really like that selection. Okay, let's move on. But we're just going to backtrack a small bit, and we're going to have a look at Monday night's fixture at Molyneux. And Adrian, I'll start with you, but I'll have a look at the betting first of all. Wolves at home at 2.39. Southampton, 4th place Southampton, 3.42. The draw available at 3.32. Southampton getting a quarter of a goal start on the Asian handicap at 1.94. And as ever, with a Wolves game, the total is a pretty low one at 2.25. And Adrian, look, similar with kind of Leicester. We haven't seemed to get Wolves right this season either, and I almost think, like, with some teams that the international break comes at a wrong time. I don't know, Wolves. I think it might kind of come at a good time for them. I think they need to break up some of the momentum, but it's hard not to be impressed with Southampton and their current form. Remember, this team lost their opening 3 Premier League games.
Yeah. They're in great form. They're in great form. They really are. And they're tailor-made to play on the road. But I think results have maybe flattered them. I certainly know on the XG, they've scored 7 more goals than Opta's expected goals have had them down for. So that tells you they've been scoring worldies. We've seen James Ward-Prowse put a couple in from free kicks. Obviously, Danny Ings scored some peaches. Even Shea Adams stepped up to the plate, didn't he? Scored a cracking volley in the last game against Southampton. They're scoring good goals. You do wonder whether that will be sustainable. And you also think Wolves, will they keep them at arm's length? They're certainly more capable, I think, of containing Southampton than most teams in the league. Yes, the Saints didn't want the break. I don't think they were flying. Wolves very poor, I thought, against Leicester. Just kind of flat, weren't they, until the second half, where they sort of found a bit more of a groove. So yeah, I think the break will have helped Wolves. It's a difficult game to pick. I think the unders is always attractive when you get games at Molineux, and for the reasons I've just outlined for Southampton, without their talisman Danny Ings, I'm not that convinced that they will go and rip it up there and score lots of goals. Very few teams don't they, at Molineux? So yeah, the draw I think is one to sort of get interested in here. I think you had it down as 3.32. It's a sort of game that to me has draw written all over it. A low scoring draw, either goalless, one apiece would be how I see this one going. But not an easy game to draw any firm conclusions on. Certainly not compared to the 3 we discussed already.
Mark O'Hare, we talked about this pre-recording, and you said you had no bet for this game, but you still wanted to explain why you have no bet. Tell us more.
Adrian's done quite a lot of it for me, in fairness. He mentioned the Leicester game. The only effort that Wolves had in the first half was a blocked effort from 35 yards from Ruben Neves. That's the only shot they had in the first half. They do lack invention. They do lack incisiveness, particularly in the first half. They've had similar issues against Newcastle and Fulham. And those slow starts just don't help their cause, because if they do fall behind, I'm not sure they're set up right now to chase games. The defence has creaked a little bit compared to the previous 2 campaigns as well. So when you sort of marry up the 2, you can understand why they've probably overperformed in terms of their results compared to what they've actually produced on the field. And also you look at the wing-backs, who have normally been really influential for them. They're sort of bedding in new faces there this season. So it's understandable it's taking time for them to sort of find their groove. And I guess originally I looked at this game and probably wanted Southampton onside with a quarter goal start. But as Adrian says, they've come out of a few tight games probably favourably with set-piece goals. They also played Everton at a convenient time, and Everton were missing quite a few of their key players. Look at the Burnley game as well. There's reasons to be opposing Southampton here too. But more interestingly, they're renowned for being very good away from home under Ralph Hasenhüttl. 34 games away from home in the Premier League, averaging 1.5 points away, which is really strong. They've earned sort of backers of the quarter goal start at least some sort of profit in 65% of those games. But Danny Ings is missing. And you look at the 12 defeats they've had, 5 of them came against Big 6 teams away, understandable. But more interestingly, some of the other defeats came against Newcastle twice, Cardiff, Palace and Burnley. All of those teams have the same characteristics that Wolves have. They're very hard to break down, sit very deep and very difficult to beat. And despite being lesser sides, you could say, to what Wolves are. So it wouldn't be a huge surprise to see Southampton struggle to break them down, particularly without Ings up front either. So yeah, it was a no bet for me. I know under Ralph, if you look at their record, home or away, and in total, without Ings, points per game, win percentage, goals per game, it all dips without Ings, and that's understandable, isn't it? So for me, it's a no bet, but I can certainly see why Adrian's keen on the draw, and that would be the preferred play if I was getting involved.
Yeah, look, we could have maybe have a half a unit play here on the draw. Because obviously it's like we said, 3.32, which is just over 23 to 10 for you fractional folks. So yeah, it's probably not a bad price there for what's expected to be a low scoring game anyway. So it could very easily be a 0-0 or a 1-1 kind of affair. So maybe just maybe a small bet on the draw for Southampton and Wolves. Okay, let's move on, guys. Let's move on to my favorite section every week with you gentlemen. EFL and European selections. Adrian, king of the EFL. So last week, so we obviously had the international break and we didn't record, but you had a post at insights.matchbook.com, which had been going quite well for you. You had 2 League 2 selections. Yeah. You had Exeter were away at Bradford. You draw no bet, so that was a push. That was a 2-all in the end. And you also had the other one escapes me. Which other?
It was the overs, wasn't it? In a game, it landed by half time. So
Carlisle was it Carlisle and Cheltenham?
That's it. Yeah, that was on the insights. Yeah, that was on the insights.
I think it was up at half time, but there was no goals thereafter, which was great.
Yeah, exactly. But no, so it's worked out well. I've got another couple of EFL picks on the insights column for this week, so check that one out if you can. I think my EFL picks on the last pod came in. Certainly one of them. So no, it's been going all right. Yeah. It's been going all right, but look, there's no guarantees. But look, what I've got this week for you is not a double. I've got 2 singles because they're quite big prices. So hang on.
Are you telling me there's no team? There's normally a team.
No, there's no connection.
Oh, okay.
Well, it's a bit of a southeast vibe going on, but it would be a bit of a stretch to label it a connection. I'm starting with Leyton Orient in League 2, mainly because I think the price is fantastic. They're at home to Harrogate Town, 2.92 to beat Harrogate Town on home turf in this game. Now Harrogate have hit a bit of a wall, had a really bright start to life in the EFL, but they've taken 5 points from their last 6 games. They're 22nd in the form table. Orient during the same period are 5th in the form table, picked up 10 points. They've scored in their last 9 games. Leyton Orient, they've got good forwards, they've got good, excellent creative players. Quite a nice team to watch actually, Leyton Orient this season. So you always fancy them to score, and Harrogate, the goals are dried up. Jack Muldoon is their sort of star man. He normally contributes, but if he doesn't, then you do wonder. So, and Orient, even though I think part of the reason they come into this on such a good price is that they've lost their last 2. They were both away to 2 of the better teams in the division, Forest Green and Colchester, and they were narrow defeats, 2-1. So for me, Leyton Orient are priced up a little bit too generously here. So I'm going to have a punt on them.
Can I just ask with that, Adrian, because look, they're 2.92 currently on Matchbook, but you can also back them at 2.09, just under 2.1 for draw no bet. So it just kind of gives you a small bit of security. I know what Mark O'Hare would do, but just you in this one, would you? I'm not trying to talk you into it in any way, but you know yourself, League 2 football can be a bit patchy or whatever.
It's difficult. I mean, Harrogate they don't get blown away by many teams, so they could keep things tight. It might not be the game that lands early doors and Orient take a 3-goal lead and you're home and hosed. It might be a tight win. So I can go with that because it's still odds against, isn't it? I suppose it's just something that we're definitely kind of just going along a long season when there's like 41 match days, especially in league football. So let's keep the wins coming. Yeah,
exactly. What else have you got elsewhere, man?
The other one is a sort of midway derby in Kent. Gillingham host Charlton, and it strikes me as being a cage game. But I'm not going to go there. I'm going to go with Charlton again. I think the price is quite fair, really, on Charlton. 2.22. This is a Charlton team that have had 6 straight wins. Only conceded twice during that run of games. Lee Bowie has found his right team. He's got a lot of new signings since Charlton were allowed to buy new players. He brought them in, and they're good players that he signed. Let me tell you, they should be automatic promotion contenders this season, I think, under Lee Bowie at Charlton. So they're very strong. Gillingham, 1 win and 5 losses in their last 6. So they don't go into this in any great form. They've lost 4 of 6 home games, Gillingham. So it's not as if the Priestfield has been a fortress. So and Charlton are very, very solid away. I think 12 points from 5 on the road. I just think 2.22 for a promotion contender at Gillingham is something that I'm happy to get on board with. It won't be a pretty game. I don't think it'll be a tonking, but Charlton have found a way to win games of late. So I'm not going to double them up because there are reasons to question both. But I think for the price, 2 separate bets would definitely be a goer.
Yeah, it's a bit of an early kickoff there at Gillingham on Saturday. It's a 1 p.m. kickoff. Mark O'Hare, Ligue 1 and Serie A for you, sir. Do tell.
La Liga and Liga.
Oh, sorry, my apologies. Sorry, yeah. Okay.
We'll start in France, Sunday night. I'm going to swim against the tide a little bit. Lille are taking on Lorient on Sunday. Ordinarily, you'd be looking to get Lille on side in some way or form. They're normally very, very consistent at home under Christophe Galtier. Sit second in the table behind PSG. But they've got a few issues this weekend. During international duty, Renato Sanchez and Zeki Selik were injured, two of their regulars in midfield and defence. And they're also without three players through suspension. Top goal scorer Burak Yilmaz, centre-half Jose Font, who we know from Southampton, as well as Reynaldo, who's more of a backup defender. But even still, you're looking at four key players missing from the Lille team this weekend. There obviously is quality elsewhere in that team, but they were around the 1.55 mark. I think they're about 1.6 now. As comparison, they went off at 1.7 at home to Nantes recently. And only 3 times since the start of last season have they been shorter than 1.6 at home in Liga. So they're a good team. I'm just not sure they're that good. And I think if you look at the league table and look at results, excuse me, Lorient, a newly promoted team, they've lost 6 of their first 10. I can understand why people would kind of walk a million miles away from that and say, no thanks. But it doesn't tell the whole story whatsoever. They've been really competitive, only lost 2 games by 2 goals or more. They've had little or no players away on international duty. They actually rank 7th for expected points. They're in the top half for all the other metrics, XG open play, shots in the box ratio. And they are at 1.9 plus 1 on the Asian handicap on Sunday night. So I don't think Lille will go off anywhere close to 1.55. I think that price is only going to lengthen between now and Sunday whilst the team news becomes a bit more available. And anyway, Lille have only covered that line. They've only won by 2 goals or more 6 times at home in the last 20 since the start of last season. So they're not regular big winners at home. So yeah, for me, knowing that the push is on side, if they do lose by exactly 1 goal, I fancy Lorient as underdogs on Sunday night.
Nice. So La Liga was the one you're about. Sorry.
Yeah, it's the bigger game of the two. Atleti against Barcelona, the big game in Spain this weekend. Barcelona have tended to have a bit of the Indian sign over Atleti in recent years. Squeezed out a 1-0 win there last year under Ernesto Valverde. But we all know they've been through the mill a bit since then. Changed managers a couple of times. The state off the field is horrendous, and they've suffered a few times under Ronald Koeman as well this year. Look at the games that they've struggled in: held at Alaves, beaten up at Getafe, second best at home to Sevilla. So there's decent reason there for me to believe Atleti can give them a right good game. Barca's process has weakened significantly compared to previous campaigns. Ansu Fati, probably their best player this season, is injured long term now. Messi's been away in South America for World Cup qualifiers of Argentina. The caveat here is Luis Suarez is missing, COVID issues. Hector Herrera too in midfield, but they've signed Lucas Torreira from Arsenal. They've signed Kondogbia as well. 2, almost just as good as Herrera, basically. 2 fantastic sort of ball winners in the middle of the field. And they're just going to go back to their tried and trusted 4 central midfielders across, contain and counter. João Felix is one of the best forwards in Europe right now, leading the line. So they've only actually lost 2 of the last 6 hosting Real Madrid or Barcelona in La Liga. They're always really tight affairs. Wouldn't expect a huge amount of entertainment. Probably going to be close to 1 goal is probably going to win it at best. But I make this a 0-ball game. The market says that Barca are a quarter goal favourites. So I think there's a reason there to be with Atleti, plus a quarter goal start. And I think there's also a reason to be made. If under 2 3/4 goals creeps above 1.7, that's certainly a bet too.
All right. Yeah, I like that one. Interesting. Saturday night in Madrid. In the Wanda. Right, let's move on. Weekend best bets. Adrian, Clarke, kick us off. Where's the top selection this weekend?
Well, I'll just reference a game that I was seriously considering having as my best bet, and that's in Scotland, actually. Rangers host Aberdeen. Rangers flying, aren't they? Absolutely flying. Perfect home record. They're up against Aberdeen. They haven't yet on the road. It's slightly fresher because they had that COVID outbreak, rule break, and so they're playing catch up. They've not played as many matches, but Aberdeen have a great record against Steven Gerrard's Rangers. They've only lost 4 of 12 meetings against Rangers, and obviously they're very, very solid on the road. So I was looking at Aberdeen on the handicap, but it's not going to be my best bet. But it's just one I wanted to point out. The reason I haven't picked it is because 1 or 2 of their key players for Aberdeen are injury doubts, and that's kind of put me off. But it's certainly one to think about because it was a decent enough price. I'm going to go with how we started the show, actually, with Liverpool and Leicester. 1.99 for Liverpool to win is great. But what I'm going to do is come up with a little cocktail. You referenced it. Let's go with Liverpool and both teams to score in that game, Liverpool against Leicester. That is the standout for me, because the price is pretty generous. I think both teams are very likely to score in this game, given the problems they've had at the back, both teams injury wise. But Liverpool for me should still win.
You see, you're not risk averse. Like you could have just taken Liverpool as your best bet there, no problem. But you're actually going to add the added caveat of Leicester scoring as well. That's ballsy.
Let's do it. Yeah.
No risk.
Let's do it.
Yeah, no risk aversion. I love it. Mark O'Hare, best bet.
Yeah, Spain, Levante against Elche. Levante have had a pretty poor start, but they've had an unfair schedule. They've played 3 games at home compared to 5 away. Only one of those games took place at their home stadium because it was being renovated, which was their last game they played at home. So this is essentially their second home game of the season. They've had a decent break now at the international break, and they're a team who normally relish their home comforts under Paco Lopez, particularly when they're favourites. I think they've got a 55% win record when hosting teams in the bottom half over the past 2 seasons, which implies odds of around 4 to 5, which is what they are on the market at the moment to beat Elche. They are without Barde, Enis Bardi, the Macedonian. Roger Marti should play. Ruben Rochina should play. Morales should play. And they're a team who creates chances. They love to play forward-thinking football, particularly at home. And this bet, I know the sort of, as I said, the 55% sort of correlates with the odds on offer on the high street. But this bet really kind of comes down to its own with Elche. They're a team who won promotion late on via the playoffs from the Segunda. They're a team which just basically defends. They don't do anything else but defend. And it's remarkable that they've had 11 points on the board, because they are awful. They've had to build a completely new squad in double quick time. So full credit to them for getting the points on the board. But they've scored 7 goals in 7 games. The reality is they're averaging fewer than 5 shots per game, which is horrendous. They've converted 21% of their shots into goals. They've converted 58% of their shots on target into goals. 2 just completely unsustainable records in that sense. And on the flip side, they're conceding over 2 expected goals per game. They're conceding over 10 shots in the box per game. They've got less than a 25% share of XG open play, shots in the box. My projections suggest that they've overperformed by 8 points already this season. And that just can't go on. It won't go on. And you look at Eibar, who are a team worse off than Levante. Eibar went off at 1.72 against Elche. Levante are a better team. This bet is going to go off short of a 1.7. I know it. So if you can get 1.8, which it is at the moment on the high street, go on it. You should be able to post up on Matchbook.
Yeah, that price has kind of come down a bit, Mary. It's 1.72 currently. But look, if it's a bet, it's a bet at 1.72. I have 0 issues with that, man. All right. Pretty good.
On Matchbook, it's 1.72.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll tell you, I think it's already crashed, and that's with a 1% margin. So it's not like there's margin built in, and the market hasn't been kind of activated. So sorry, my apologies. It's just moved back up to 1.73. So watch this space. It's imagine an active market already on Levante and Elche. Fantastic. Yeah.
Waste of time.
Absolutely. Yeah, you could have been betting this morning instead of talking with us, Mark. Like, what's this?
I have bet it, Sully.
There you go. Point. Yeah, absolutely. You've moved it. I'll quite happily take it at 1.73 that's currently there at Matchbook at the moment. All right, that's it. We're out of time as ever. Thank you so much, Adrian and Mark. An absolute blaster. We've got a lot of bets, guys. By my count, we have about 9 selections. Yeah. So what's the worst thing that could happen? Once we turn it in the black, and we'll be watching Levante and Elche on Saturday. I never thought I would be, Mark, but we are now. La Liga TV, bring it on. All right, guys, thanks so much as ever. Thanks for watching today. Thanks for listening if you're on the podcast. We'll be back again next Thursday. And for now, best luck with your bets and take care.